Story 1. One summer day, something extraordinary happened that I will never forget. At first, everything seemed normal, just like any other day. But then, I was feeling tired and achy, so I decided to take a stroll on the beach. As I reached the shore, I noticed that the sky looked really strange. After a little while, I started feeling weird and my heart began racing like crazy. All of a sudden, I felt an intense pain in my chest and arm. I was terrified. I tried to get up, but the pain got even worse. There was no one around to help, and the campsite where we were staying was miles away. I started walking as fast as I could, desperately searching for someone to assist me. I managed to cross a grassy area and climbed over a small wall, but then I started feeling faint and collapsed. I closed my eyes and thought to myself, this is it. I'm dying. Surprisingly, I wasn't scared anymore. I was tired of always feeling sad and living a life that wasn't fulfilling. I let go and surrendered to whatever was happening. I could feel the grass beneath me, and then I couldn't feel anything at all. All I could hear was a voice in my head saying, "You're dying, but don't be afraid." Suddenly I saw a beautiful bright white light that filled me with joy. I was drawn towards it, as if it was calling me. Then I started seeing flashes from my life. It was like I was actually reliving those moments, both the good and the bad ones. It was more than just memories or images. It felt like I was truly experiencing those events all over again. There was a voice that talked to me about some not-so-great moments, and I understood it. It made me feel so much better because the voice said, "Hey, you did your best. I understand, so don't beat yourself up." It was actually the same light I saw earlier that was talking to me. It wasn't like a ghost, just a bright light. And I felt this incredible sense of happiness and love that I've never felt before. I didn't even care about my body anymore. I was just so happy to be there, even though I had no clue where there was. Then I started seeing a pretty lawn with vibrant colors, and it was so peaceful. I felt like I was a part of the ground, the leaves, and even the wind. But then, I started missing my mom. I thought to myself, before I go, I really want to say hi to her. But the voice told me that my mom would be really sad if I left. I could even see her crying. At that time, my mom wasn't with us because she was on vacation with my dad. I didn't actually have a conversation with the voice, but it answered my thoughts. I didn't feel the need to talk because I knew it understood me. It said, "It's not your time yet. You have things to learn from this experience." Then all of a sudden, I was back in the light, and then everything went dark. It felt like I was back inside my body again. I could feel some roots from the ground touching my arms and chest. And then, slowly, the roots went back underground. I opened my eyes and had this feeling like I wasn't alone. But at the same time, I felt sad. I really wanted to stay with that light. But I knew what I had to do. I had to go back to the caravan and the camping site. So I walked back. The next day, I woke up feeling strangely calm. I went and hugged my nieces and spent the whole day playing with them. This story was shared by David R. and happened in 2019. Story 2. All of a sudden, I was thrown out of my own body. I was wide awake and floating above myself. It looked so strange from up here, like I was a bird looking down. I left my room and my house, and my journey took me to endless space. As time went on, I started to realize that there were spiritual beings around me, but I didn't really pay them much attention. Seeing things from this perspective was so exciting because I could understand and perceive everything right away. It made me realize how slow our minds are in comparison. At first, I was moving forward slowly, but I had no idea why or where I was going. Then suddenly, it became clear where I was headed, and that's when things got really crazy. I started speeding through different worlds at an incredible speed, like I was in a super-fast spaceship. All I could see was the changing colors and brightness. And the strangest part was that I was always floating about half a meter above the ground, and it felt like I was gliding with no resistance at all. Finally, I arrived at my destination, and it was pitch black all around me. I could sense that there were many beings there, but they seemed slow and boring. They didn't talk to each other, and didn't even seem to notice the darkness because they were so caught up in their own world. I couldn't help but think, uh-oh, I think I ended up in the wrong place. I don't feel comfortable here at all. Even though it was very dark, I could tell that I was standing by a lake. I didn't even have time to think about what was happening because I spotted a boat in the distance. There was a man standing up in the boat holding a lantern and looking right at us. Jesus, he was the only light around for miles. But honestly, I didn't really care about him at first. I was just feeling so tired and lazy. But then he came over to me and stood really close. He had these amazingly shiny and loving eyes, and he gave me a big hug. Suddenly everything got very bright, and all my worries just disappeared. It was the best feeling ever, being surrounded by so much love and happiness. And then something crazy happened. I felt this new confidence inside me, like I could do anything. It was like I was a whole new person. I realized that I had been holding myself back with my own thoughts. Jesus started talking to me in my head and told me two things about my future: that I would find my spiritual teacher and achieve self-fulfillment. I have no idea how I got back to my body. I had been in a coma for 3 days at home, and then in the intensive care unit. The next thing I remember is trying to find my room in the psychiatric ward. I couldn't remember the room number, and all the doors looked exactly the same. When I got home, my friend said she wanted to get rid of some books from her personal library. She asked me if I wanted a book about a man named Ramana Maharshi, who was from India and was a really deep thinker. I had never heard of him, but I remembered something Jesus said about finding a spiritual teacher, so I thought, why not give it a try? I started reading the book, and it was interesting right from the start. It became my guide in life. Fast forward 20 years later, and what Jesus said about finding a teacher actually came true for me. It's crazy to think that if I had taken my life, I would have missed out on so much beauty. I had no clue that things could change in such an amazing way. This story was shared by Alfred A. and happened in 1998.
Story 3. I went to grab the coffee, but it was 6 inches from the place where I saw it. That day in 2005, I was so scared that I went to the hospital without worrying about having lost my voice. There, I was diagnosed with atypical pneumonia caused by lupus. 10 years later, I had gained 110 pounds from the cortisone and steroids administered for my continuous joint pain. I then got sick with a lung problem called pulmonary edema, and the doctors gave us some really bad news. They said that I probably wouldn't get better, and if I did, I would have to use a wheelchair and be hooked up to a machine that gives me oxygen. They said my lungs were too damaged to heal properly. All but one of the doctors had pretty much given up on me. The lung specialist still had hope after the medication he had given me. He told my husband that he didn't know who we were listening to, but he believed something unexpected was happening. Even though my improvements were small, he thought they were very significant. Right at that moment, something really strange happened to me. It was like I left my body and started going back home. I saw myself as a bright light, floating in a universe full of colors and shapes that were opening and closing. I went through them with so much happiness and peace. It was a joy that I can't even explain with words. Eventually, I came to a place where there was a female figure. She was just a light, but when she spoke, she said she was my aunt who had died 4 months ago. She told me that if I went through that place, I wouldn't be able to come back. I understood when she gave me a choice. I was still me, Adriana. It wasn't about my body, but who I really am inside. I started thinking, why would I want to leave that amazing place where I was so happy and filled with love and joy? But then I heard my daughter's voice saying, "Mom, I need you for my wedding." She didn't even have a boyfriend, and she always told me to leave if I was tired during the 45 days I was in the hospital. But this time, it was different. She wanted me to come back. I realized that love is the reason we're here in this world. It's such a powerful force that it can make us leave behind that peaceful and joyful place. When I decided to come back, I heard a man's voice saying, "It won't be easy, but the best years of your life are still ahead." And you know what? It was true. My recovery was amazing from that point on. My lungs started working again, and they took out the tube of my throat. They said I wouldn't be able to talk properly for a few days, but that same evening, I was talking and taking medicine like nothing happened. And it's been like that ever since. Today, I can breathe without any help, I can walk, and I can even travel. The only time I need a little extra oxygen is when I'm really high up, like over 1,600 feet above sea level. My life is totally normal now. I weigh 180 pounds, I don't feel any pain, and I feel better than ever. This story was shared by Adriana G. and happened in 2016.